Heather McDonald has got the juiciest scoop. When you're on the road, when you're on the go, Juicy Scoop is the show to know. She talks Hollywood tales, her real life Mr. Segment serial data and serial sister. You'll be addicted and addicted fast to the #1 tabloid real life podcast. Listen in, listen up. Woo woo. Heather McDonald, Juicy Scoop.
Hello and welcome to Juicy Scoop. I'm recording this from my beautiful room at the Palazzo Tower where I performed at the Venetian Saturday night to so many Juicy Scoopers. Sold out show. It was all that I ever wanted. It was my favorite show that I've ever done. And I've gotten an incredible amount of compliments and so many in person because the next day, Sunday, yesterday, I went to BravoCon with Brady and Julie and my sister Shannon and my son Drake, and we had so much fun. I loved meeting so many of you, and it seems like everyone really had a blast. I'm going to get more into that on Thursday's show, but in a nutshell, I think they did it. It really ran smoothly. It was a lot of fun moments I saw, but not really very juicy. I think the juiciest moment was at the Heather McDonald live show. And I talk a little bit about that on my Patreon, which you can listen to right now. I dropped a special one on Sunday. But we did go to the final Watch What Happens Live last night. We got tickets to that. And it was like the shade room. And it really just wasn't very shady. I think people were really on their best behavior as far as like dropping juice or really dissing each other. And the best line was they asked this girl from Dubai. I'm not that familiar with her, but she was very funny. And they said, who do you think up here wears the most fake designers? And she said, she by Sheree. And Sheree got up, and that was kind of funny because she like had hurt her leg and she's like hobbling around. And she's like, this dress is Alexander McQueen. And the other housewife goes, Alexander McQueen or Alexander McSheen? That by far was, I think, the highlight. Also, the Vanderpump guys, Tom Sandoval and James Kennedy had a push-up contest and James won. I think those were like the things people are kind of talking about. So there should be more fun stuff like that in the future. But I will do a better review and everybody they met and talked to and the juiciness. But we had the best time, killed it, went to great dinners, just had so much fun. And now I have a great interview I did with the real life wife of the Wolf of Wall Street. You probably remember the movie. The real wife is here. Of course, they've since divorced, and she's gone on to be a therapist helping people that are in narcissistic relationships. So very, very juicy conversation that you guys are going to get to listen to now. Enjoy. Well, we have an exciting show, don't we? I am with Dr. Nay, but her real name is Nadine Macaluso. She has a new book, Run Like Hell. You can get it for pre-order. But I'm so excited to talk to you because, first of all, you're so fun on TikTok and everything. But you are the real life woman who married the Wolf of Wall Street. So Margot Robbie played you in the movie. Leonardo DiCaprio played your now ex-husband.
Correct.
Which is, The Wolf of Wall Street is one of my favorite movies. It's trending on Netflix right now. And you just said it's been 10 years.
Yes, 10-year anniversary.
Since it's come out. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I want to get all into it, but I mean, I loved that movie. And that was really the first thing we saw Margot Robbie in.
Yes.
And I remember going, I'm sure everyone in Hollywood said the same thing, but I was like, this girl is a star. This is she. Did you like the way she played you?
Oh, I mean, I loved it. She was fabulous. And I actually got to meet her. Because I'm from Brooklyn and they wanted my Brooklyn accent. So they asked me, will you meet Margot Robbie? And I said, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So before. Okay.
Yes.
So let's just kind of get into your background. Okay. And, you know, we saw the movie, remind people of the movie. Obviously things are exaggerated for the movie, but the story of The Wolf of Wall Street, in case you don't know, is about your husband, Jordan, ex-husband.
Yes.
And he was just a go-getter. And he really rose on Wall Street, but he wasn't doing everything correctly. And it all came crashing down. But along with it, what made the movie, which is one of the genres of film I love, is like cocaine, partying, New York lifestyle, that 80s fast. And we see all that happening, 80s, 90s.
90s.
More 90s.
Yeah.
And
it's just a great, great movie. So if you haven't seen it, I say definitely watch that, then order her book. But let's get a little bit into your background of like where you grew up and everything.
Yeah, so I grew up in Brooklyn in the 70s, which was a great time in life. I wish we could go back to that time. In Brooklyn with a single mom. And I had a really charmed, easy life. And then I grew up poor, so I needed to make money. And nobody was handing me any money.
Yeah.
And so I went to become a model because I needed money. That was simply the reason why.
And did you know growing up that you were exceptionally pretty? Like when does a really pretty person know that they're pretty?
You know, I had no idea. And then at 13, everybody started to act really differently towards me. And I was just kind of like, what's happening? And somebody on my street had asked me to be in a movie. And then I started to realize it. But it is a strange phenomenon.
I have a very attractive friend, still very pretty today.
Yeah.
And she was from a single mom too, who had her very young. So the mom was always young and pretty.
Yes.
And I remember the mom telling me, she goes, I remember the first time like somebody was asking me for directions or something, like a man. And then they were no longer looking at me.
Right.
And they were looking at
Yes.
my now 13-year-old daughter
Yes.
who's like, quite attractive.
Yes,
So yeah.
yes. And my mom was 19 when she had me.
Oh, wow.
So
Very
very
similar.
similar.
Yeah.
And so I started to model in the city and was running around the city having the time of my life. It was hard modeling. You have to have very thick skin.
So you started to do that like high school, college? Or?
I did that. Well, I did that at the end of high school and college, but my mother was very against it. She was very into education.
Okay.
And she did not like it, but I literally needed to make money. So I was like, sorry, Mom, got to do it. And then I was running around the city and making a lot of money and having fun, dating all these rich playboys in Manhattan. And that's just like in the movie. I went to Jordan's house in West Hampton.
At a party.
At a party.
At a big party, a big West
Yes.
Hamptons party. That's a great scene. Yeah.
A big party.
And when you went to the party, just someone was like, let's go to this killer party in the Hamptons.
My boyfriend.
Oh, you're with somebody. Okay.
I was with somebody, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so tell that story. How did you meet?
Yeah, so we pull up to this big white house on the beach. I'm 22. I mean, totally clueless. So I'm like, oh, we're going to have a great time. We're going to meet some nice people. And we walk in and everybody's acting so weird. Now, I don't know they're all on Quaaludes. Okay. So they're all like slurring and like a little strange. And then, what happens in the movie happens in real life. One of the men pulls out his penis, or in front of me, and I'm mortified. And I look at my boyfriend, I'm like, we got to get out of here. I almost felt scared.
Yeah.
And then we left. But I guess Jordan had seen me. I mean, I met Jordan briefly. I barely even remember meeting him at the party.
Did you even realize he was the owner of the house?
No, I don't even think so. It was such a blur. And then I guess he saw me and he had this white Ferrari Testarossa with a muffler that you could hear from 10 blocks away. So I could hear him circling around the Hamptons looking for me, even though he was married.
Okay, what happened then? How did he get you to go out?
So then what happened is this older woman kept calling me and saying, do you want to go out? Do you want to go out? And I was like, why the hell does this woman want to go out with me? But I'm people pleaser, especially at 22. So I was like, sure. She said, well, that guy, Jordan Belfort's going to come. So what is he coming for?
So he was kind of using her to facilitate the date.
Oh, he paid her $15,000.
To find you, befriend you, and get you to come to a restaurant.
Yes.
Which then he would show up at.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my God. So he saw you and it was like I
guess.
I've got to have it, the ultimate goal, fixation.
Yes. And
Okay.
so I had no idea. I'm this naive,
Yeah.
And I see him come out of his Ferrari with his cowboy boots. And he sits down next to me at Mezzaluna in the city. It's a great restaurant. And we start talking. I'm from Brooklyn. He's from Queens. I have no idea I'm set up. And we just got along great.
Oh, is the woman still there? Or is she
Yeah,
not
she
there?
was there.
Okay.
She was there. And then he was like, I'll drive you home. And I lived in Brooklyn Heights at the time. So he drove me home. And then he started to touch my leg. I was like, this guy might like me.
Uh-huh.
And then we pulled up to my house. And
is that the scene that we see where he's like, what, can a guy have friends?
No, it was a different one. It was a little bit different, a little bit different. But and then he said to me, "Oh, what's your phone number?" And I said, "I'm listed under Ophelia Lopez. Figure it out." That was my best friend that I lived with.
Oh, okay.
And then the next day I came home.
Because there's no cell phones. So
no, there's no cell phones.
They have to call the apartment and you guys split the phone bill down.
Yes,
Okay,
yes. And so then I come home the next day because I'm throwing a party for my best friend for her birthday. And there are, 300 bouquets of flowers. I can't fit them in my apartment.
Just the overdoing of everything.
And everybody's like, you didn't sleep with him? I'm like, no, I didn't even know I was going on a date.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how it started.
And so, okay, so then when did you know that he was married and what did he say about that?
Okay, so then I think I left to go model in Chicago for a while. And then we kind of lost touch after that.
But at that point, you had been romantic then?
No, we hadn't been romantic yet. We got romantic, like that was probably the summer. We didn't get romantic till around December.
Okay.
And so that's when he told, I don't know, somebody said to me, I saw Jordan, or we got connected again. And he told me he was separated. He had an apartment in the city. And so I really thought he was separated, but now I know that wasn't clearly the case.
Okay.
And unfortunately.
And he had a couple kids, or did he have no kids with her? No kids with her. Okay.
No kids with her. And then we went out on a date, and that was it. We fell madly in love.
Then you fell in love with him.
Yeah, we fell madly in love.
And so when he's just, doing amazing, we see in the movie the yachts, the this, the that.
Yes.
We see the John Hamm character who's, kind of thinking something's up with his business. Were you clueless? Did you not? What was it like to be the woman of the guy? We see this a lot now with housewives and stuff.
Yes.
I didn't know what was going on, which I totally can see how that would be, especially when you come into the marriage and he's already doing so well.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's not like you guys grew, built it together.
And he's a very extraordinarily bright man, very bright man. And I mean, I never knew from money like this.
Yeah.
When we first met, I was going to Aspen. He's like, here's $15,000. I couldn't even spend it.
To get outfits and stuff.
Yeah, I couldn't even spend it. I bought my mother a stereo. I didn't even know what to do with the money, honestly. And it was, listen, it was so much fun. The limos, the dinners, and just being so in love. And he swept me off my feet. He really did. He was good at it.
Okay, so then you decide to get married.
Yes, this is when it starts to get tricky.
Okay, explain this.
Yeah, so this one starts to get tricky because Jordan's used to getting whatever he wants. And so he's a salesman.
Right.
So he starts to high pressure sales tactic me, right? He's like, we have to get married.
Now, how long you'd been dating at this point?
6 months.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to get married. I'm 22, 23 years old. I don't want to get married. If you don't marry me, I'm not dating you. I was like, all right, guess I'll get married.
Yeah, because you loved him.
Because I loved him. And then I just was like, oh, he just must love me so much that he wants to. And then it's like, if you don't have a baby right away, then I'm not going to marry you. So he was always moving the goalpost.
So he wanted to get you pregnant right away. So
right
you'd be
away.
Trapped.
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about that. Then I want to go back into the movie.
Sure.
Because I do think in your book, you really get into details and you really explain things. I think this is a great book. And by the way, it comes out when?
January 9th.
And I said, what a great book to pre-order. January is that month that you're like, let me work on a little of everything in my life, fitness, health, mental. And I just think this is like so interesting because I was telling my Pilates instructor that I work with, and I said, oh, my interview today as I was explaining who you were. And she goes, what is love bombing? And she's like, oh, she thought love bombing was when they try to get back together with you.
Right.
And I was like, no, my understanding is love bombing is this initial thing, much like your situation with Jordan, where they're so into you. It moves so much faster than other people you've dated.
Correct.
That I believe it convinces you that if this guy likes me this much and is so into me and is so making plans so much, then this must be the right person for me, right?
Correct.
Because he thinks I'm this great and I've never had anyone think I'm this great before.
Yes. Correct. Yeah. It's the intensity of it. It's the over-the-top generosity, the helpfulness, the like intense attention towards you, constant flattery. It's just coming at you. And it actually kind of puts you in a trance.
Yeah.
Yeah, where you just like, oh, this is fabulous.
And I would think everybody, like, was your mom happy for you? Was she suspicious at all? Or was she like, we hit the jackpot?
She was, but my mom was a very bright woman, God bless her soul. And she sat me down before we got married. She goes, you know, you don't have to do this. And I was like, but Mom, I love him. And then we got married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And why did she say that? Because she was suspicious of this behavior?
She might have been suspicious. And I think she knew I was so young.
Yeah.
You know, what the hell did I know? You know, at 22, you think you know so much.
Right.
And I didn't know anything.
Yeah. Okay, so you have a beautiful wedding.
Yes.
And then he's like, I want you off the pill, get pregnant right away, whatever.
Yeah, well, I was actually pregnant at my wedding, but I had a
okay.
miscarriage.
Okay.
Yeah, and I
Sorry.
do a TikTok about that
Uh-huh.
where, you know, the night before my wedding, he's wasted. Now, I say to this guy, I'm going to get married. I'm going to have your baby. You would think he's be present with me. No. So the night before our wedding, we get into a big fight because he's stoned the night before.
And what was his drugs and alcohol?
His Quaalude.
Quaaludes with alcohol or what?
Mostly just Quaaludes. You don't really need a lot of alcohol.
Is
with
Quaaludes even like around anymore?
No, you can't get them anymore.
Oh.
Because they were so good, they banned them.
Right. Well, that was what they talked about at the Playboy Mansion.
Yes, yeah.
The leg spreaders is what he called
yes,
them.
Yes. So we got married, and then, you know, our crazy life began.
So then did you feel an immediate change right after the marriage with him, or like once he got you,
Yeah, it was slow. It started, I would say, 6 months with the intimidating and threatening behavior of, you know, you got to marry me or I won't be with you. You got to have babies or I won't marry you. You know, I started to see it, but I had never seen anything like that before. And I grew up in a very calm home because my parents were divorced. So I didn't even know from yelling and all of this intimidating behavior. So I was kind of shocked by it. And I really didn't know how to handle it. And I am from Brooklyn. I'm no wallflower. So I would push back at him, but I was no match for him and his temper. And then I just started to see more of the anger and the control.
Yeah.
He really needed to control me.
And how are some ways that he would do that?
Oh, just, you could just feel it, like, how can I think about it? Like where I was going, who I was going with. You can't be friends with that person.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Don't wear that
And when that happens, is it just that you do push back?
Yeah.
Right? But then it's my understanding that when people are in these situations, you push back, but it's like, even though you like this girl and you know she's not bad news or anything, but the husband is like, I don't want you being friends with that person.
Yes.
They're not good for you. They're not your friend or whatever. That by the third fight, you're like, you know what?
Yeah.
I guess I won't meet them for lunch because
Right.
it's like I don't want to come back from lunch and fight all night. Like,
Right.
and then all of a sudden that's when the isolation then starts, right?
Yes. And that's like I said. So it's little things, you know.
Yeah.
Then they all start to add up,
Right,
and then all of a sudden you lose yourself,
right.
and it's a very slow burn.
So you have your first child,
Yes.
and who's that?
Chandler.
Okay, and so how old?
Chandler's now 30.
Okay, great.
And she's a therapist.
Oh, great.
Yeah, she's amazing.
And then you had another one?
I have a boy.
Okay.
Yes, his name's Carter. He's a musician.
Oh, great.
Also fantastic.
So you have, we see in the movie, you guys have the two kids, and
Yes.
and tell me about the scene on the yacht
Oh, yeah.
in Italy,
Yeah.
and what is the truth of that night versus what we saw? Because, you know, the helicopter comes to save you, but then the helicopter goes down.
Yes.
Like what?
That was all very true.
Oh, really?
It was
Okay.
the first time I had left my children because my son was really young. And I remember I even went to the backyard and got rocks with them and painted a box so they could shake it if they missed me. I taped bedtime stories for them. It's a big deal to leave them. And we go on the yacht and we land in Rome. I guess we were going from Rome to Sardinia.
And are you with who is the guy that plays his best friend? What's his name? The actor.
Jonah
Hill.
He wasn't on that. He
Okay,
wasn't there
okay.
then. It was different friends.
It was different friends. Okay.
It was three other couples. And we get there and the captain's like, it's going to be a little stormy, but we're pretty serious boats people by that point. And Jordan's like, let's go. And we're sleeping and the waves were pretty strong. And all of a sudden I look up in the stateroom and I see water coming down on the bed. And I'm like, what is happening? And I go up there, and we had a little dinghy, a boat in the back called the Chandler. And all of a sudden, it gets pushed out to the ocean. And I say to the captain, you got to call a mayday. He's like, well, if we call a mayday, you better get off this yacht. I said, well, we're going to get off the yacht, dead or alive. Like, we got to call the mayday. And we were in Italy, so the Italian Coast Guard didn't speak English really. And so they called the mayday, but then the waves were coming so intensely. We got caught in a squall, and they couldn't come save us. And so what happens is that, you think everybody's going to scream in those situations, but now I know as a trauma therapist, everybody starts to get really quiet and shut down. Because they think they're going to die. And what happened was the Italian Navy was going somewhere, and they rerouted them and sent an Intrepid to us to come save us, like a huge ship to come save us. And at 5:30 in the morning, this was after hours, I lost 12 pounds in 18 hours from nerves. When I got off the boat, I looked like a refugee. Because I really thought I was going to die.
Can you really lose weight like that?
I mean, or at least I looked like it. Like I lost a crazy amount of weight. And then they said, you can have nothing on your person, get on the deck. And a frog man came, got me, wrapped me up, hoisted me 40 feet up into a helicopter. And we all did it one by one and got saved and lived.
And then the boat went down?
And then the boat went down. Because if you don't drive into the waves... Yeah, that was, I had a license plate.
And did the helicopter come that was trying to save you that he ordered, did that really go down?
Well, we had a helicopter on the yacht. So the yacht had a helicopter and a seaplane because Jordan goes big or goes home. Yeah. So we actually had to push the helicopter off the yacht for the helicopter to land.
Okay. But then that helicopter never came.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So the one did come that came and saved us.
Okay, right.
Yes. So it was crazy.
But in the movie, it's like he pushed for this, even though they didn't really. There was a character that said like, "I don't think it's safe," and he's like, "I don't care. We've got to get there because yeah."
I mean, that's a little bit true. I don't think Jordan wanted to put us in peril. I don't think he understood. But you have to remember that sort of personality is grandiose. They're larger than life.
Right.
They think they can handle and manage anything, but. No, the sea, you got to respect.
Now, did your mom have a relationship with him? I'm trying to remember.
Yes, she did.
And what was the deal with that?
They had a good enough relationship. Yeah, my mom was very respectful of him.
And okay, so when did the marriage then, like, what happened? I don't remember. Like, did he go to prison and then you break up? What happened?
Well, it's different than what they show in the movie.
Well, what happened in real life?
Yeah, what happened in real life is that Jordan's drug addiction got so insane and our life got out of control. And I used to fight with him and you have to get sober, you're killing yourself. And, people that are addicted to drugs don't listen. I didn't know anything about drug addiction, right? I didn't know how to handle it. I was in therapy at the time. And
did you have those moments, like now I'm just remembering, where he was wasted and he tries to take the kids from you? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I can't even imagine how scary that is when your partner, is not in the right mind and your kids are with them or he's trying to take the kids.
Yeah, there were two. That was the big moment in our life when I said to him, we had gone to a drug counselor and he didn't come back the next day. And the drug counselor looked at me and she said, if you don't leave this man, you're going to get cancer. And she snapped me. And then that night I went home.
Just cancer from the stress of life.
I was like, you have
your physical health.
Yeah, she was like, this is way too toxic. So I said to him, you have to get sober. I said, I'm not going to sit here and watch you kill yourself. I mean, this is insanity. And so that's when he went crazy, threw my clothing, jewelry, lit them on fire, put them in the fireplace. And I went into my closet and I leaned on the wall and I said, God, give me the strength to do this. And he went crazy. I left that night. My housekeeper was there. I knew my kids were safe. And then I came back. And that's when he said to me, I'm taking our daughter to Florida. I chartered a private plane. Now, I know he's wasted out of his mind. I'm like, over my dead body, you're doing that. And I went after him. And luckily, my mother had told me, call the police before you get home because tell them you're going home to a domestic violence situation. And I chased after him. He did kick me down the stairs. Luckily, I was in really good shape at 31. And I called the police and they came. And that was when he drove my daughter into the garage. We all were fine. But because my mother told me to call the police, they came and I was able to stop him because I said to my housekeeper, close the garage door and we were able to stop him. And that's when he drove us onto the garage door. And then the police came.
And so then you were done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After that.
And was he cheating on you during that time? Did you ever catch him cheating, or was it just the drugs?
I never caught him cheating.
Okay.
That was more for the movie, I think. And he needed to write it like that, that's his prerogative.
Yeah.
But after that, we did stay. He did go to rehab. He did get sober. And we did stay together for a year. But I was done after that.
And then when did all the legal stuff happen and you realized it was all crashing down?
So then he got arrested. And this is a very important point, is that people say, oh, you left him because he lost all his money. No. Mm-hmm. I did it because he was now the government's problem. I knew I was safe.
Yeah.
And I tried to stay with him and stick it out after he was sober. But when somebody kicks you down the stairs, it's just not, you can't really love them again. But I tried. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then he got arrested, and I knew that he was the government's problem. I was safe now because he's very rich and powerful. I was afraid to divorce him.
Right.
I didn't know if he could take the kids. And then that was it.
And so then how much time did he do in prison?
He did about 22 months, many, many years later.
Oh, so it wasn't a big.
Yeah.
And that's all he did?
That's all he did. Yeah.
And then what about the money? Like what did you live off of? Like, did all the money have to go back to the people that he stole?
All the money went back, and I was happy to give it back.
And was it like now, like with Erica Jane from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, people were trying to, you got to give these $750,000 earrings back, and then no, they weren't bought with the victim's money. They were bought with this. Like, did you have to give?
I gave it all back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I gave it. It was.
What about your engagement ring?
Oh, I gave it back.
Oh, really? You're just taking it
all?
I
took $1 million of jewelry and I drove it to the courthouse with a bodyguard. And they took all my homes, everything. I always say I left with my kids and my curtains because I got to take some furniture. But I was happy to give it back because the people needed the money.
And then what did you live off after that? Now, how old are you?
So now
You're divorced.
I'm 30, 31.
The kids are how old?
The kids are 3 and 5, 2 and 4. I had started a maternity company. Uh-huh. So I had a website, a store.
For maternity clothes?
Yeah, for maternity clothes. Because I was wearing all designer clothes. And then I was like, I don't want to wear that. So I started to make clothing. So I had a little business.
Okay.
And it was working. So I had some independence, not clearly what I had, but that was okay. That was okay.
And so you had just like a normal little home.
So then what happens is...
And is he giving you any money or no? Because he's in prison and he has no money.
He wasn't in prison yet.
Oh.
And I don't know if he was giving me money or
Would
he
he
just
see the
had
kids?
some money. Yeah, he could see the kids, sure. Uh-huh. He went to our Southampton home. I stayed in our Brookville home. And then
So you got to keep 2 homes?
Just for the year.
Oh, for 1 year.
For 1 year.
And then they took the Hamptons home.
Then they took them both. And then what happens a year and a half later, I met my current husband.
How'd you meet him?
On a blind date.
By the same woman? What if
Not
it was
the same woman?
What if it was the same woman?
It was a different woman. That would have been a red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, different woman. And he lives in California, and he was in the garment business too, like me. Uh-huh. So we shared that interest. He had 3 kids, still does. And so he said, why don't you move to California? And I was like, that is the best idea I've heard in a long time. Because I wanted to get my kids out of New York. I didn't want them to deal with that legacy of Jordan. That wasn't theirs to carry. And we moved and had a whole new fresh start.
So you moved and started living down in the South Bay.
Yes, in the South Bay.
Which is like the Manhattan Beach area with your kids. So they went to school there and everything.
Yeah.
And then where was Jordan then? Would he just come?
He followed the kids.
Oh, so he then was living in California.
Yeah, then he moved to California. He's a good dad. Jordan's a really good dad. Yeah. He loves his kids and my kids love him. It's really nice.
And so when did the book come out and become a movie? Like what was going on with that?
And so here I am. I think I've escaped all of this.
Right. You have a different last name. Who would know anything, right?
Nobody knows anything, California. And, my ex-husband, God bless him, he is a genius. He decides to write a book while he's in jail.
Oh, okay.
So I guess Cheech and Chong told him to write it. I was a cellmate. I don't know.
Really? Oh my God, that's amazing. Yeah.
So he writes a book and he shows it to me, and I'm so dramatic. And I read it, and I'm like, what? I call him up. How could you do this? He's like, I did it for us. I'm like, no, you did it for you. Just say it.
Because what did you not like about it? the book?
Well, first of all, my life with him, as much fun as we had, was really scary and really traumatic. And he wrote it very funny. And I didn't think it was so funny.
It is a funny movie.
And it is funny.
And I mean, with that scene of him on the Quaaludes and going down the stairs of the
it's
country
the best.
club.
That's my favorite scene.
And, you know, and then
Yes.
Jonah Hill is hilarious in it as well.
Yes,
And
yes. So it
throwing
was,
the little people around.
yes, no,
God,
I mean, they were crazy.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't like it. It wasn't my narrative. I mean, it was my first response.
Yeah.
And I would like threw myself in bed and cried. My husband was like, it's time to get up now.
Yeah.
And then I woke, I was like, okay. And then I accepted it. I do that. I have to feel my feelings, express them. And then I'm
Right.
like, okay, I'm going to accept this. And so then I decided to go back to school to be a therapist at 39. So for any of those females that don't think they can have a career later, we both know you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then leave it to Jordan. Now he's got to make a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio and Martin Scorsese.
Now, did you know it was being shopped as a movie, or did you only know when it was like, okay, it's actually, here's the deadline article,
Yeah.
this is all cast, or
no,
you knew it was
we
inevitable?
because we have a good relationship, and he would talk.
But did
to
you
me.
ever think that
No, I thought it was
it's going to be like a Lifetime movie? I mean, did you think it was going to be like Oscar contender?
I should have known better knowing him.
Yeah.
I should have known better. But I was like, oh, it'll never happen.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, it happened. And it was really crazy timing because 2013, that's when I was getting my doctorate and I was writing my dissertation. And I had my private practice because I had my master's. And I'm like, who the hell is going to want to come to me as a therapist? I mean, I'm going to look like a crazy person. But ironically, the opposite happened.
Totally, because you have the experience. You're not someone,
Yes, I'm walking
it's
my
not
talk.
like a Catholic priest giving advice on how to
Yes,
stay married.
right,
It's
right.
like, well, how do you know? Like you've been through
Yes,
it. Right.
I've been through it.
Yeah.
So I was worried about that definitely for a few moments. And I made them change my name because they wanted to use my name. I said, no, I make no money. I have no creative input. The story is not from my perspective. You can't use my name. So that's why they didn't use my name.
What do they call her?
Naomi.
Oh, Naomi.
I mean, everybody knew it was me anyway. But it was like my one, trying to have some independence.
Yeah, but it's like they pick a very similar looking girl and everything about it, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Margot
yes.
Robbie. Yeah.
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 So then I, Paramount was nice enough. They sent my husband and I to a private screening. And we just were like, okay.
That was the only thing you got out of the movie.
Yeah.
You didn't have to spend $10 on the ticket.
No popcorn.
Yeah.
No popcorn. But we did that. And then Jordan and I took our son because he was a teenager. Because my kids were going to the premiere anyway. And I was like, you know what? It's not that bad.
Yeah.
It could have been a lot worse. I enjoyed the movie. And the movie came out on Christmas Day. And I have my kids Christmas morning. Jordan has them in the afternoon. And I could tell Jordan was feeling weird. And I was like, you know what? Why don't you guys come over? Why don't you guys come over for prime rib and cream spinach? And we watched old movies of the kids the day the movie came out.
And so your husband has always been fine. They have that's so
very
lovely
nice.
when your ex can get along with your new
Yeah.
husband. And did he ever get married or have any more kids?
No, he was engaged for 9. Well, he's currently married. He was engaged for 9 years, and now he married a really lovely young woman, Christina. She's great.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Okay, so he is fine with now you telling your side of the story and you kind of explaining.
Fine is I think it's been a little challenging for him, but he's accepted it, and we do have a really good relationship, and we've always kept a good relationship for our kids.
Yeah.
And I always say to my patients, I know how hard it is to divorce a narcissist and deal with people like this, and post-separation abuse is real. But if you could figure it out and keep it civil for the kids, do it. It's so important.
Now, I have some questions about some of the stuff that we talk about in the book. Narcissists. First, the love bombing thing. Now, I'm curious. Did Jordan do this with his last fiance and his now wife? Does a guy know that he's doing it, or can they grow out of it? Can they recognize it?
I think it's part of their personality. A lot of them, like Jordan, go big or go home.
Yeah.
And I think it's the way he shows love. I don't think he thinks, oh, I'm going to love bomb her. But I think it's who he is. And it's a great tactic because it works.
Yeah. And like, explain a little bit, because I feel like narcissism, it is a name that I think, a word that I do think is being overused.
Yes.
And I believe people can have narcissistic traits, but are you really a narcissist unless you have 9 of the 11? Or like, how do you how do you legally be called a narcissist without just the word be thrown around? Because I think a lot of people get confused thinking it means you're vain or conceited, and it's not that.
Yeah.
How would you best describe
Right.
it?
And that's one of my pet peeves about psychobabble, right? Is that there's a lot of misinformation. So in my book, I actually don't call the man in the trauma bonds a narcissist. I call him a pathological lover, because pathological means mentally unwell, right? So they usually have some narcissistic traits, some psychopathic traits, usually a substance abuse disorder, some compulsive process sexual addiction. So it's a very complex personality. Narcissism is actually the lightest of the personality traits. If they're just a narcissist, great. That just means they're self-absorbed, grandiose, need a lot of admiration. But it's the mix of all of the bad personality traits, because usually they're very hostile and antagonistic and very selfish. And this is the way I say it. This person will do anything to get their needs met for money, pleasure, power, and status. They will exploit, betray, and use people that they love.
That's a true narcissist.
That's a true, pathological person will do that to the people that they love.
Right.
And it's painful.
I mean, I think people need to look at that, and when they think maybe they're with a narcissist, go, okay, well, then I'm probably not with one, because this person wouldn't do that. Do I think that, do they admit that they're wrong? No, never. But does that mean that they want my birthday to suck? I'm watching all these things on TikTok, and they're like, a narcissist will make sure that every holiday is ruined, and make sure that if it's something for you, they'll set out to pick a fight that morning and everything. And so then there's people that I've thought have been kind of narcissistic in my life. And then when I go through those lists, I'm like, oh, actually, they're not. Right. And then I've had Dr. Drew say, well, some narcissistic traits are good. Most pilots, you kind of want the pilot flying your plane to be a little narcissistic, because you want them to have the confidence to know that they are the best at doing this job.
That's right.
It's in some ways, it can just be a very, knowing that you're very capable and believing in yourself too.
Exactly. And those are the good qualities. But, at the end of the day, abuse is about control, right? So that's really what happens in a trauma bond, is that the person is really controlled and abused by their partner. So they have to have 2 things for a trauma bond. They have to have a power imbalance, meaning that one person holds the power. Sometimes they get that power by being dominating and intimidating, right? And so we fear them.
Right.
So we're like, okay, you're in charge.
Because they're screaming and yelling, and you're just forget it. Fine, I won't go out to lunch with my friend.
Right. And then the other thing is you have to have intermittent abuse. So people have this thing it's a cycle of abuse. No. If it was a cycle of abuse, it'd be easy to track. It's intermittent abuse. 75% of the time, they're usually controlling, abusive, betraying, lying, manipulative. 25 to 35% of the time, they're generous, helpful, and kind. So it's the mix of those 2 different behaviors and the intensity of them both that keep the bond.
And then what if you're also doing intermittent fasting? Intermediate? Wait, intermittent fasting? Yeah. Along with intermittent
then you might be hangry.
Abuse.
So those are the 2 things that you really need to have a trauma bond. So that's why people.
Now, when you say trauma bond, don't you have to bond with somebody else?
No, you're bonding with that person traumatically.
Oh, even though they're the one who's causing it.
Yes, that's
See, I thought a trauma bond was something like you and I both have lived through trauma.
A lot of people think that.
Oh,
yes. Okay. No, you're bonded to a person who's traumatizing you.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, is there any, I feel like when someone comes and they're with someone like this, it's always well, it's never going to get better. Get out. That's that.
Yeah.
But is there any situation in which someone can go, all right, I just have to change the way I react, because I do want to stay with this person. I don't like these things about this person. I think this person is wrong. but I don't know, maybe play along and let them think they got their way. I don't know. How does someone do that? What is the solution if you're not willing to
if you're not willing
get divorced,
to leave,
sell your house?
Yeah, I think the solution is to really, because I think in a trauma bond, we're very focused on the other person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the solution is to turn the mirror back on yourself and get really focused on yourself. And if you have children, focused on your children, because if you make a choice to say, and I have no judgment on any of that,
Right.
then better yourself, make sure you're physically healthy, mentally healthy, get into therapy. Maybe make sure you have a career. So if you do want to leave, you have some financial independence.
Mm-hmm.
Relationships and marriages are so complex.
Right.
So there's no judgment. Plenty of women come to me and we just might hold it for years till they're ready to leave. It's not my job.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When someone chooses to leave, that's a very personal decision. Now, unless they're in physical danger,
Right.
then that's very different.
But have you ever had someone where you were like, this person absolutely should leave,
Yes.
and they don't, but then years later, it did get better, or does it never really get better? Or does the guy ever change, or no?
If it's that extreme that I'm really thinking they should leave,
Yeah.
the guy usually doesn't get better. Now, does that mean that I haven't seen men get better? I have, and there's been one incident.
Let's talk about the one positive.
where the man realizes the woman doesn't need him.
Oh.
And he wants to change. Because listen, I wouldn't be a therapist if I didn't think people could change.
Yeah.
I'm in the business of helping people change, right? So yeah, when they realize you don't need them, sometimes they change.
Oh.
But
yeah.
they have to want to.
Right.
Right? And that's not up to you.
Right, exactly.
No.
And then what are these, you talk about the clusters.
Oh, yeah, the cluster B personality.
Yeah, explain that.
So that's where narcissism, antisocial personality disorder, borderline and histrionic personality disorder, those are the personality disorders that lend themselves to pathological people, usually antisocial.
Explain histrionic, because I feel like that's something that we don't hear a lot about. That I definitely know someone who was, and I was always like, "Is this person bipolar?" Like da 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 da, and not until someone's like, "I think that she's histrionic," and then sent me the stuff, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this explains everything." So explain a little bit what histrionic is.
Yeah, so similar to all the cluster B personalities, these people are dramatic. To have a relationship feels dramatic and erratic. They're very reactive. They can be very needy. They can just start to get angry at you over nothing. They can need a lot of attention. So yeah, it's a person that's very dramatic and erratic in their relationships. So we call them personality disorders, but now people want to call them interpersonality disorders, because it's not just like anxiety and depression. It greatly affects the people, as you're saying, like with your friend that you're in relationship with, right?
Yeah.
It affected you to be in relationship with a person like that.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating. Yeah.
Right.
So that's the cluster B. But then they have the psychopathy. Then they have Machiavellianism.
What is that?
Highly manipulative. Like, let's look at Jordan setting me up on that date. That's highly manipulative.
Because you just thought it was just like a casual dinner thing.
Yeah. So they
with this girl that was supposed to be your friend.
Yes. Yes.
And seeking you out and everything.
Yes. They
really
can be,
fixated on you.
Yeah. They can be highly manipulative. And then the psychopathic part is very cold, very callous, very insensitive. If you notice, they can hurt their partners a lot, betray them, time and time again, cheating on them with no remorse or empathy. It's like, get over it. It wasn't that bad.
And when a cheater is like that, like,
Yeah.
get over it. Like, is it like, get over it because I own a helicopter or because I'm rich? Or like, what is, like, I do think there's women that, accept cheating or
Yes.
whatever because they're like, yeah, but as long as you don't bring her home and you don't bring her around and you don't have a baby with her, I'm just going to compartmentalize because I do have this fabulous life. Like, I've had people that
Sure.
I've talked to girls and they're like, I just told her, look around, deal with it.
Yeah.
Like women who are married to
Yes, very
$100
yes.
million whatever dollar people.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not what I would want, you know. It's not what I could deal with, I don't think, because it's like the trust of like,
Yeah.
I'm just supposed to not know where you are, or
Right.
I mean, like, what about those type of people? What about a woman that has you ever had a woman that comes to you and is like, listen, my husband cheats, he has da-da-da. I'm just trying to find a way that I can still love and respect him because I don't want to leave. Like how?
Oh yeah.
I would just feel
have-
like you're like playing an actress. Like how are you supposed to want to sleep with this person or even enjoy a conversation when you're like, I fucking hate you. You're
I know.
cheating with this girl.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of women stay out of fear, emotional dependency, financial dependency, but also the thing about a trauma bond is hope is the hook. They think that maybe they're going to change or maybe they'll recognize their ways. And, you know, usually they don't. But what happens in this relationship is the woman's very confused because, remember, he has two masks. He's good and he's bad. So then she starts to think, is he really bad or is he really good? Am I crazy or is this relationship normal? Wait, is the relationship bad? Is it good? So she has something called cognitive dissonance where she's always confused about, is he good? Am I good? Am I bad? Is he good? Is the relationship good? And that's really confusing. And what the research shows, and that's what I write about in my book, it shuts off your executive functioning. Like you really can't think and plan and organize when you're so confused internally.
Right.
It's very, you know, and that's why people say, oh, she should leave. We're talking about very complex psychological topics.
Yeah.
You know?
I saw this thing where this woman asked her husband, it was on a TikTok.
Yeah.
And he's like, he's probably like late 60s, 70s. And she's like, I just want to ask you, you know, why do you think men cheat? And he's like, well, you know, I've worked with men all my life, which lets me tell you he's probably finance, something that's a lot of men.
Yes.
And he goes, and there's this thing back in my day called big man on campus.
Okay. Yeah,
Men want to feel like they're the big man on campus.
Yeah.
And it's with them. It's not the wife. It's not because their wife isn't sleeping with them enough or
For sure.
being sweet enough or pretty enough. It's that when is that somebody at work or somebody outside their home makes them once again feel like the quarterback, feel like the big man on campus. Either they maybe were once at one time or they never were. And that is why then they pursue someone.
Yeah. Well, I have two thoughts on that.
Yeah.
One is that men like that want to be admired, but I try to teach them love is not admiration. And a lot of times they feel entitled to it and they feel superior.
Yeah.
There's a great book, Why Does He Do That? By Lindsay Bancroft, who's a total expert in this field. He's worked with these men for 30 years. And he says it quite simply. They feel entitled and superior. And especially if they're really successful.
Yeah.
I should get what I want when I want it.
I make this much money.
Yeah. But not thinking
doesn't mean
about,
that I want to leave my wife.
Right. Doesn't mean she's not lovely and wonderful. But
I want this need met.
But
right now I want this ego fed.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we go, they will do anything to get their needs met, right, at their partner's expense, but not understanding that there's another person on the side of that loves them, that has feelings for them. But if their feelings are shallow in general, they can't relate to it. They don't have empathy for their wives.
You know, I've know somebody and her husband cheated on her, married the woman, and really his life, I mean, she turned out to be absolutely awful. I mean, just the worst. It's over with now. And I said to her, I gotta know, you know, and she's still so lovely, inviting him over for Christmas, being great about the kids. And then the second wife made her life hell unnecessarily. Okay. Oh. But I said, now, has he ever just said, God, did I fuck up? Because my friend is still gorgeous, fabulous. Now
lovely.
She's met the next love of her life or whatever. But like, she was never going to get divorced. She was still down to have sex and work, make money, be a delight, decorate the home, like everything along. And it was really an ego thing where who knows what, but this woman came, she was a patient of his, and she just latched on.
Yeah.
Like just completely latched on, hooked into him, convinced him, manipulated him, everything, and then continued to manipulate him and cause problems with his kids and everything for all the years until now she's gone. But like, you know, she said he did finally say something. He said like, he's like, I just want to say, you know, you've just been so great and you didn't have to be because I know I put you through hell.
Oh.
Well, I thought that was kind of nice.
That was very nice.
I wanted a little more detail. I wanted him to really say, what the hell did I do?
Yeah,
like,
a little more accountability.
Like, I mean, but I gotta
But
say.
we'll take it.
But for years I've been like, he's got to be like,
Yeah.
why the fuck did I
Yes.
cheat?
Yeah, maybe.
And then end up with this awful person.
I know. And you just don't know. You know, at least you know what you got when you're married.
I mean, but have you had many men or women that say that the men do then say, God, why did I do that? Like,
No.
had I just stayed with the first. So there's not many that go, God, why didn't I just stay with the first wife? Because sometimes I see these men, right?
Yeah.
So they have the first wife, they have the kids and everything. They cheat, get divorced. And then they meet the girl that's 20 years younger and she acts like, oh, I love our life. I'm a nice stepmother. Oh, no, I never want to have kids. And then sure enough, they're married and she's like, I got to have kids.
Yes.
So now he's got 2 little kids and he's 57 years old.
Right.
And he has 2 little kids with the second wife and the other ones are like finally going to college. And I'm like, I just see some of those guys walking around with like a knee brace at Disneyland and they're like sweating. And I'm like, is it really that fun with this one?
Yeah.
It's literally the same thing, except that you're 30 years older.
I know. You know, I just say like, I'm at like the grandparent stage right now with my husband. We've been together 24 years. And trust me, marriage is marriage, right?
Yeah.
Hasn't been perfect, but
Yeah.
we've made it through. And I say to people, if you could just stay in it.
That's what I say.
It's so beautiful to be at this stage right now with our grandkids and all of our
So
kids
how old are your
together.
grandkids?
I have a 3-month-old grandson and a 3-year-old. And
From
it
your
is,
daughter?
my daughter just had a baby.
Okay.
And then my stepdaughter had a baby. And it is
Oh my God, that's so great.
much fun. And the family holidays and the vacations, you know, and there is something about family.
Well, I mean, that's the thing I've always said, like to people. I'm always like, do you see yourself babysitting your grandkids together with this man?
Yes.
And if that's what you want, not that you should have to put up with abuse or anything.
Of course.
But, you know, like just take a breath.
Yes.
Suck it up.
Yes.
Marriage is, someone said also too, like, marriage doesn't mean you're guaranteed happiness every day. It's a journey.
No. Yeah, I always say to my patients, if you don't hate your husband once a day, you're not in a good marriage.
Yeah.
I mean, it is work.
Yeah.
You know, and that's different. Like, so we call that situational couples violence, I think that's what it's called. Yeah. And that's different than like, or situational couples fights. Like, that's different than a trauma bond, right?
Okay.
So like we all fight. We all fight about what car to buy, how much money to spend, how much sex we're having. I mean,
Right.
these are common.
Domestic. There's just domestic
Yes,
stuff too.
that
like
we disagree on,
yeah,
right?
Like,
or
did you like shut the door?
right.
Like, you
or my
left-
husband's
yeah.
like, you're too easy on our son. He's going to not be strong enough. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
he's awesome, right?
Yeah.
So those are typical fights.
Right.
And we all have to figure out how to communicate and work through those.
Right.
But that's different than the sort of thing that I'm writing about. That's why I put Run Like Hell. Because if you're with a coercively controlling, abusive, betraying person who has a pattern of that and substance abuse and all the things that go along with that, it's good to get out if you can.
And I believe too that like just because he was, you know, you had your situation with him.
Yes.
25 years later or whatever, based on who he gets with now or married with, like I have this other friend and they had an awful marriage and they had the same birthday. Not that I'm into like astronomy, but I did think that was kind of weird. Maybe
Yeah.
like it just, I don't know. It's not meant to be, just too much alike. Very compatible, very compatible. They have 2 kids. They break up. He gets married to somebody else, has another kid. And she's like, when you go over there, like, what's it like? Like, do they fight or anything? And the daughter was like, no, like they don't.
Huh.
And I don't think it was all his fault. I do think sometimes it's just
Yes.
an awful combination.
Yes, that can
And
be.
sometimes you just find someone the second time around that's just It doesn't mean you're going to have the same relationship every time, you know, or it doesn't mean that if this guy was this way with this woman, like that you should be like, oh, well, definitely don't date him. You know, like, I mean, give him a chance, I guess. It's providing it's not, you know.
Right, providing it's not too extreme.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons also why I wrote my book is also for like young women to educate them, right? Because when I left my ex-husband, nobody was talking about trauma bonds and narcissists, none of it. I was like totally in the woods on my own.
Right.
Right. And so I also offered this as a guide to young women because we need to learn about relationships. We learn about reading, writing, right? Math. Nobody teach us about relationships, and they're the total foundation of our lives.
Right.
And they're the most important thing. They're what makes life worth living, as far as I'm concerned. And so I want to educate young women too, what to look out for.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very important before you end up in all these complicated things.
What about, have you found that when people do get divorced, I guess it's all different times, but I always find it really interesting when someone's like, oh, I knew as I was walking down the aisle.
Yes.
That I shouldn't do it.
Yes.
And
that was me.
So you had the doubts.
I had the doubts.
Because the night before he was
wasted.
Yes,
Well, I did a TikTok about it.
Yeah.
Where I talk about where we got engaged.
Where did you get engaged?
In Brooklyn, in front of my favorite fast food restaurant called Rolling Roaster.
Yeah.
In Sheepshead Bay. And we're in his Ferrari, and he whips out this 5-carat diamond, and he gives it to me, and do you want to marry me? I say yes. But inside my stomach said, uh-oh.
Yeah.
And I totally ignored my gut.
Right.
Well, I was going to France on the Concorde. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of that fun and fabulousness
made me ignore my gut.
It's going to be very, or anything what it is. The wedding's planned, or you're of an age that you're like, I really want to be a mom.
That's true. So true for so many women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, it's now or never. Like, and then I've even had people be like, I was like, hey, well, maybe I'll be divorced at 40 with a 4-year-old, but at least I'll have a 4-year-old. At least I'll have tried or whatever.
Yes.
Because half the people get divorced anyway. So who's to say?
Right.
I don't know.
True. That's
I mean,
true.
sometimes maybe it is okay to take the leap or whatever. But who's ever going to totally know?
You never really know. You never really know. But there are red flags now that I now illuminate, like look out for these if you see them.
What are some of the top red flags before we wrap it up?
So substance abuse, if they tell you their ex was the craziest person in the world, if they don't respect your boundaries, if they want to monopolize all your time. So there are things like that.
What if they want a threesome?
Initially, might be an issue.
Yeah.
We could do that maybe 10 years down the road, but like sex should be good and healthy in the beginning.
Yeah. I just saw that the Prime Minister of Italy, she's a female, attractive woman, looks like maybe she's in her 40s or something, and hot boyfriend. She said the story is they broke up because he wanted a threesome and a foursome, and it was like recorded or whatever. And I'm like, you are running a country.
How do you have time for that?
And your man is still like, can you go down on this girl while I watch? Like, what the hell? Like, I don't have enough to do in my life.
She admitted that?
This was like on TMZ, or I saw the story. I saw the story and I read just the headline.
Oh boy.
But it was that they broke up, and I guess allegedly the rumor is this is the reason why. But she said, we're just going our separate ways or whatever.
Yes. Okay.
But I'm like,
it's a crazy world we live in.
It doesn't matter if you're like running a country or if you're just a housewife.
And I think that's like a really beautiful point to mention is that, that's why one of the reasons I wrote my book is that let's stop blaming the woman. It doesn't matter if she's the most beautiful actress, if she's a housewife, if she's a teacher, no matter who she is, it happens to everyone and everybody.
Right.
It just does. So stop saying she's codependent, she's this, she's that. No, she's just a person on the planet that wants to be loved and ended up with the wrong person.
Or when people are like, I can't believe I believed this con man who might be stealing your money, but or also cheating or be a con man of love, okay?
Right.
I can't believe I'm so stupid. Why do you, no, you're not stupid.
Right.
Why is it wrong to believe that someone thought you were fabulous and that someone was into you and that's like, why would you're lovable. Why is that? Why shouldn't you believe that someone's intentions are good?
Exactly.
Because your intentions are good.
Well, that's
You're
exactly
walking out
what
on the world being a
happens.
happy person and a good person. So then why would you think not everybody would be a good person?
Exactly. That's exactly what happens. We start to see the world through our lens and we think everybody else sees the world that way. But they don't.
Yeah.
But they don't. Yeah.
Well, I'm really excited that you came here. It's run like hell. Nadine Macaluso. Is that Italian?
Yeah, I married a crazy Sicilian.
Oh, nice. And you tell everybody where they can pre-order the book.
Yeah, you can go to Amazon and pre-order the book. And
how can they follow you? Because you.
Yep, they can see me on The Real Dr. Nadine on Instagram. I post every single day about all this stuff. I've been doing it since 2012, I think. And now I got this crazy following on TikTok.
Good.
And that's Dr. Nay, Nae LMFT. And I only did that because one of my young patients was like, you have to go on TikTok. And
Isn't it great? That's
it's great. And I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Well, I'm so glad you came.
Thanks, Heather.
And I'm glad you're a juicy scooper too.
Oh, I am a serious juicy scooper. I need it after all my serious days as a therapist.
Good. That's what I like. I like it that, it's a nice little escape.
It really is.
It really is good.
It really is. It works. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.